Education Minister Angie Motshekga will visit schools in Letlhabile in the northwest to monitor the return of matric learners to schools. 10 teachers from the Ikatisong Secondary School in the area tested positive for COVID-19 about 3 weeks ago, forcing the school in Brits to shut down for deep cleaning. Let's cross live now. The minister is speaking to media.
They leave schools at 5. Other schools are doing it. They must arrive early themselves if there's no space at home, so that there's a balance between what teachers do and what learners do on their own. But I think seeing themselves alone here, it's dawning to them that they are at a very serious stage in their lives. I find them much more relaxed, much more focused. So I think just the fact that they're the only grade here sends the message to them that it's serious. They have to focus, they have to study. But we'll see with the week. Next week, I don't expect much drama. The biggest problem that we already anticipate is going to come after the 24th, when we receive more grades and start work on a differentiated timetable. Because the way schools have, the last school they said they won't have enough space for all. After grade 10 comes in, they won't have space for all the learners. So they're going to have to platoon. They say platoon is not the best thing, so they are going to rotate Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday they teach, Tuesday kids have to go to do lots of work on their own, Wednesday they report back, so they'll use that system. Some are going to have weekly rotation, where learners come this week, there's intensive, they're given work to work for the whole week at home, they come back. So that's where I think we're going to start beginning to feel the stress of the coronavirus. For now, the space, there isn't much really. Now, even next week, I don't expect much. The problems are going to come after the 24th.
All right, Sipho Stuurman from SABC News. You say the problems are going to come from the 24th. Talk to us about what are these problems you're anticipating when the schools are reopened as in all grades are allowed back in. What are these problems, and are there any plans to try and mitigate the problems?
I thought I've explained. To say the biggest problem is going to be spacing. I've explained that with all the spacing that we have, when learners all come back, we won't have enough space with this physical distancing. So we're going to have to use a differentiated, that's the plan, differentiated timetables, which are going to either daily rotations, because they can't all be here at the same time every day, because there won't be enough space for all of them to be safely distanced at the same time. So we've worked plans. Some schools have agreed on a weekly rotation, others have a daily rotation, but others, those that are resourced, have developed tents. Teachers, for instance, are breaking classes. For instance, in that class there are 15. Normally we have 35, 40 in a class, so which means from one class there are 2 teachers. So it's going to be staffing and spacing, which is going to be a problem, and how we manage staffing and pacing after having broken them into small groups. Minister, because one class, it's 2 now, so which means it's 2 teachers.
You mentioned that you're going to rotate, so then will that be adequate time for students to complete the academic year, because we expect them but your statement had said that this academic year or schooling year ends from the 15th of December, so with all this rotation coming in at certain days or not, so then is that going to be adequate time?
Obviously not. That's what we have said so many times, that what we have done for the internal grades, it's to take parts of the curriculum of 2020 into 2021, right? So we are going to only even assess them, teach them almost 70% of what they were supposed to have taken. And in 2021, when the grade 3s, for instance, start, they will start with grade 2 work, which we had removed from the curriculum. So we have done it nationally, as nation, to trim the curriculum and take it over next year. So it's going to finish in December with 70% of the work already covered, but we're not going to dump the 30% that we've not done. We're going to factor it into 2021. In 2021, again, we don't think we'll finish the work of 2020 and 2021 in 2021. So which means some elements in the curriculum trimming will have, that's why I said it's going to be a 3 years program to see if we can claw back what we have lost.
Minister, are you satisfied with the catch-up plans that have been put in place by various schools?
Because now the grades that have been back is grades 7 and 12. Smaller schools which have multi-grading. They also have their different plans. And different schools, unfortunately or fortunately, they work differently. In some schools, for instance, what they plan, they start doing grade 11 work, grade 12 work in grade 11. They close later and start early for the grade 12s. So by the time they go to the matric year, by September they've finished. So which means they're not on, they don't have the load of the entire year's work. They would have started it off earlier to make sure that in the final year they do revise. So school by school would have done its own plans. Some schools are teaching weekends if they're able to do. Some schools are teaching later. Some schools are using support material, ICTs. So they're giving lots of materials to learners. So every school is looking at its own situation, where it is with the curriculum, what are the available resources, what support is there. But what is remaining for grade 12, which we keep on repeating, the paper was being set. They're writing the paper which we had set almost 2 years back. Because the cycle for the paper is 18 months. So that's the paper they're going to write, which was set up in 2017, 2018. So which means they have to finish that which was set up for 2020. And that's why we'll push the exam. We're not giving them break to allow them to finish. We're pushing the exam to December, and we've removed all the dates. In our estimation, we will have clawed back the time that we lost through the coronavirus. So we've taken the 3 weeks of June, we've taken the week away from September, we've taken the early, they start normally writing around October, so they're writing in December. So again, we're taking 6 weeks of what would have been, and then try to put it back to the year and see if we can claw back.
Minister, we know that the health minister has been talking about the increase in infections, especially coming from August until September. And there were calls, of course, by teacher unions to close schools, and he subsequently did that, for 4 weeks, and of course, just a week for the grade 12s. Would you say, when you look at the rate of infections going up during the surge, was this the best solution to give pupils another break while we see the rate of infections going up during these 2 months?
No, but yourself, journalists, have been flighting, doctors, pediatricians, which were saying the rate of infections have nothing to do with life going on. So schools, and I've been repeating, schools like yourself and me, life goes on. And we're saying also the lives of children had to continue. But when we took the break, there were quite a number of reasons. Health itself, and you can see they were quite right. And I hope that we are going down. So health says it's actually the right time now that we should take a break. Yesterday we had 5,000, the other day we had 8,000. So health had said that 3 weeks will do. But on our part, I met with principals, and principals said, especially for your grade 12s, they just need a week and then a break. Just this new normal has not been very easy for them to adjust. And we needed space and time to prepare for the bigger incoming, for the bigger cohorts to come, so that teachers have time to prepare materials in advance, because it's going to be teaching differently. So it's not, so the factors that made us finally decide to take a break, it's not only health matters about infections, no. What we've said with most experts, with the Presidential Advisory Committee, that schools are good for children. They are better off in schools than everywhere else. So it's unrelated to this. It's just that we had to deal with some of our own challenges that we had with, there are things that we didn't expect. I mean, this thing about co-mobility really almost inconvenienced us. We had not thoroughly planned, especially for the 24th group, for substitute teachers, to get budgets for your temporal teachers, to mobilize. So that's new things we also discovered when we were getting there, that a big problem. So health is one consideration, but the bottom line is, if we had everything in our hands, we'll be bringing them all here, because the bottom line is that schools are good for children.
There was a protest outside the previous school which we went to, and basically they were saying that you only go and monitor schools which seem to be doing very well, and there are some schools who are still struggling to get a hold of PPEs, and they still don't have the necessary equipment. What do you say to those allegations?
I don't choose schools. I normally from the MEC to say every morning I visit schools, which schools can I visit? Then we go to the schools. So I have no interest in hiding anything. I mean, it's not in my interest that schools don't have PPEs and then hide. No, I mean, it's not in my interest. It's in my interest to make sure that schools have the resources that they need. So if there's anyone who's aware that there's school so-and-so which doesn't have PPEs, they then inform us. I quickly contact my colleague to say I get this information. So I don't have any interest in getting schools to issue. I mean, what do I stand to gain when schools don't have PPs? Actually, the information is helpful so that I could go there. So I don't choose schools.
Minister, what would be your response to parents that are still concerned about the readiness, especially when you're phasing in all the other grades? So what is your message to parents at home right now, as we know that by the 24th of August, all grades will be coming in, and you said that issues of social distancing and spacings are still a concern. So your response to parents that are expressing concern to that, and also in that context where all the students are back here in schools, and then we have one confirmed case, are there protocols in place that state clearly what should happen?
Because the fact of the matter is, protocols are there. You go to our website, they are all standard procedures which are using. So those schools for the month that we're open, we're using those protocols to start with. In terms, and I've said this to you, that we know on the 24th, so there won't be space. We have put in place plans. Hey.
Yeah, but we know that you've put it in place, but we've had the concerns. Even the previous times where you've opened, you've said you had plans in place, but then it led to a situation where schools had to be closed again, so which meant that there were concerns, even though you had said initially that you had plans in place. So right now, my question is, parents who still have concerns, what is your message to them?
The message is the same. That's why I say if you're concerned, you don't trust that we look after your child, keep your child at home. So we don't want to expose your child to unnecessary dangers if you are not convinced. As far as we're concerned, we're doing all we can to make sure that children are safe. But rightfully as a parent, if you continue to be concerned, do the right thing, go to homeschooling, register your child, develop a program for your child, and keep your child at home.
Minister, sorry, on that topic, do you have any indication already of how many parents decided to homeschool their children, or is it too early to determine that?
Maybe it was because it were fewer grades. We even checked with the Homeschooling Association. Parents didn't take up, and without speaking to parents, my view is that it's also not easy to homeschool. Because you have to register your child. You have to develop a program. You also have to arrange for assessments. And sometimes parents themselves don't have the time and the capability to monitor the program. And that's why most of them didn't take it up. In the schools that I've visited, maybe I was biased. As I said, the last school I went to, ask them how many matriculants you had, they say 195. How many matriculants are packaged? 195. Here, how many matriculants? Same number. So it's really not panned itself quite strongly. Schools that would have had a 50-50 are your private schools and your schools from parents where they're well resourced. So that as they keep their kids at home, they have the capability to put their kids, and not to remove them from the school. They keep them at school, but they put them on your ICT programs. But in terms of homeschool, there's just not been a high take-up. But as I said, maybe it's because of parents' commitments themselves, just being unable to do all the needed steps or, yeah.
Go ahead.
Minister, is the department investigating any irregular or fraudulent tenders or contracts with regards to the distribution of PPEs amongst schools, learners and teachers, and also with regards to the companies that sterilize the schools where there has been positive COVID cases?
As the Department of Education, we really will not have the need to do it. Nationally, we didn't procure a thing for schools ourselves as national. The procurement was given to provinces. But even in provinces, the provinces would have centralized procurements in specific departments so they can take advantage of economies of scale. For instance, in Gauteng, the MEC for Gauteng was just not involved in that space. We had to place our orders through health, so and hence the Premier is looking at that. I know, for instance, I don't know of any Department of Education that procured. In Northwest, you did it through, the procurement was happened through Treasury.
Yes.
Through Treasury. In Limpopo, it was through health. So the investigations that are going to happen, but ourselves as a department, in the Free State, for instance, they were doing through Treasury. In Limpopo, they were doing through health. So most of the procurement of PPs was centralized in your key department. So as a department, we really don't need to do it because we didn't procure.
Minister, the Limpopo province, there are still quite a number of schools there that haven't received water. They're still complaining about sanitation where there aren't toilets even for the learners to go to. Is there a plan from your side to maybe go to that province, or what is the plan for that particular province?
You'll have to give me schools because I was with my infrastructure team yesterday. And we were planning for the 24th just to check if things are in place. And they were telling me that there's no school that had not opened because of water and sanitation. That's what they told me. So I would really need to be told that this school, then we verify. But from our national team, because I get information from my national teams that there's no school that will not have opened because it doesn't have water. What they still need to do, and during the rush, they had put tanks on the floor, they had not installed them properly, and they're busy installing those, just to rectify some of the things which were done rushed. I'm meeting the sanitation team this evening because what we had done, we had put in your chemical toilets, and I said to them, the reports that we're getting that people are not very comfortable with them. So what is the plan now that we have to do in the next 2 weeks, that whilst we still have not removed all those pit latrines, what do we do in between? And the recommendation which has been coming from schools is that instead of bringing, what do they call them, these toilets? These temporal toilets, we'll rather dislodge those pit latrines, make them safer whilst we're putting up toilets. So we're looking at those options, but there's a school that didn't open because of that. That's not the information that I have. What we're doing is just to really try and strengthen that which we did when we were planning for opening.
Okay, last two questions.
Yeah, otherwise supposed to visa into this fundraiser.
Silas, we are from UFM. Minister, how catastrophic could it have been had this year had been lost due to COVID-19?
You're using the right word. It would have been catastrophic. No, honestly, it would have been catastrophic. For me, it's even catastrophic as it is to have kids who are outdoors, especially poor kids who have no access to reading material, ICTs at home since March. Up to now, they've not gone to school. For me, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. I said, even next year, even when we had trimmed the curriculum, we'll still not be able to claw back what we have lost, let's say. So it's a disaster. Even 2020, we don't think we'll recover. So we really are sitting on a disaster. That's why we're really looking at what is it that we do. We bring ICTs to claw back. We're already sitting on a big disaster. That they would not have gone there, I just think would have been worse. So the little that we can claw back, I think we should. For different reasons, grade 12s have to live so that the system breathes. Because the education system, it's a living system. So if you block any phase and do it the Kenyan way, I don't know what we do, because there are 1 million grade Rs which have to join the system next year. So you need movement. It's a living system. You need movement. You need these grade 12s to move, to give the system a breathing space. We need your grade 12s to move, to allow space for the grade 1s, just to get the system to breathe. But even now it's breathing under very difficult conditions. Catastrophic, you use the right. Just call it a big.
Okay, well done. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, that's basic education. Angie Motshekga just briefing the media here in Brits in the Northwest after visiting 2 schools to monitor if, the reopening of the schools, that is the grade 12s who've come back after a week's break. You will remember on the 27th of July, the President announced that schools would be closed yet again because, of course, at the time the country was experiencing, a high rate of new infections, and so the plan was that the schools would be closed for a week for matriculants, and that it would be 2 weeks for grade 7s, and then now there's a new revised schooling calendar. So this schooling calendar, how it's going to work is that the grade 12, of course, have returned starting on the 3rd. That was yesterday, 3rd of August, that is yesterday on Monday. They've come back. We're expecting them, the grade 7s, to also come back next week after a 2-week break, and then the rest of the other grades then will be phased back in from the 24th of August. But as the minister said, that it's been a disaster to have kids that have been away from school for this amount of period of time due to COVID-19, and saying that they expect greater challenges when we have all the other grades back in school, because there's the issue of distancing, there's the issue of spacing, and just being frank with me here, I asked her a couple of questions that will they be able then to finish the curriculum for this academic year, and says that they can only finish up to 70% of the curriculum that had been planned for this year, and that the rest of the curriculum for the schools will be phased in the following year, that is 2021. So definitely lots of challenges that are experienced by basic education as a result of the lockdown we've experienced. But right now what we know is that matriculants are back, and the plan is to have all the learners and pupils to continue with schooling up until the 15th of December. At that time, matriculants would have written their matric exams, and then going to January 2021, that's when they expect to be done with marking matric exams, and then on the 23rd of February 2021, that's when the results will be back, and then on the 25th of February 2021, that's when the schools will reopen again. So it is really a game of trying to catch up for the Department of Basic Education. Right now, matriculants back in school. We expect grade 7s to be back next week, and then on the 24th of August, all grades will be back in school. But then another important factor here, when I asked the minister, or what she said, is that if parents feel uncomfortable or feel that their child will be placed at risk by when all these grades return on the 24th of August, parents then can apply to homeschool their children. They would not want to force any parent to, bring back their children back to school. So it sounds as though that parents have the option of homeschooling should they wish to do so. But certainly the minister describing this as a disaster, saying that they can only catch up to as far as 70% of the curriculum, and saying that but the priority is to have the matrics to finish with this schooling year, so that they can be able to take in new grade 1s. They expect about 1 million new students, pupils to come in the next year. So he's saying that it's important that you get the matriculants out, and then they go to the next phase of their education career. And with that, from Brits in the Northwest, it's back to you in studio, Desiree.
Sipho Stuurman, thank you so much for that update there.